In this video, I thought I will just show you briefly how I edit some of my shots. This isn't a tutorial as such, it's just basically me going through an editing process from a recent photo shoot. So I thought I'll start with this one, which is a shoot I did this week. It's a sort of cosplay warrior themed shoot, and I'm kind of after like a filmic kind of look for this for the edit, so I thought I would just start with this shot by here. So I will open it up in Camera Raw just to start with. Let Photoshop do its thing. Alright, there we go. So first thing I want to do is crop the image because I think it's a little bit too wide. So I will select the crop tool, hold down shift, and this will help keep the corner and the shape of the crop as you crop the image, because if you let go of shift it does all this weird wobbly stuff. So hold shift and it'll retain the shape of your image. So I kind of want him to be a bit more on the side of the frame like this, maybe bring it in a bit more. Again, hold down shift, actually a bit wider there. The good thing is with Camera Raw, so I've hit enter and it's resized the image. Let me just check. Yes, nice pin sharp shot. Is that if you've decided then after, once you've hit enter, once you've hit your crop, you can actually hit the crop tool again and then you can resize it again if you think, oh hang on, I cropped it too tight. So here we have our color modes and things, so you have a white balance settings, so as it was shot, looks pretty good to me, to be honest, but you know, generally I would just quickly skip through them by pressing the up and down arrows just to see what my kind of default options are and things. I'll just leave it as shot. Looks okay for now. The exposure looks good to me overall, but I think maybe some of the highlights in the background could be brought down. So using these sliders by here, little tip is whack the sliders right from one side to the other to see exactly what they do if you're not quite sure the effect it'll have on an image. So for example, the exposure, stick it all the way down there, obviously going to make it really dark, and the other way really bright. So I don't really want that, so I'm just going to double click and leave it there in the middle. Highlights, I think, let's bring these down, because I reckon these highlights here and these the rocks in the background and this armor and things, they look kind of okay. If I slide this down, you'll see the information that's there. There's a lot more information still within the image. So I'll bring the slider down. You can see the difference there, and the rocks in the background and stuff. Brings out some of the details. I won't bring it all the way down because it kind of flattens it a little bit there. Then I will select the shadows, which is similar to what the blacks do, but I think if I just want the shadows, like, you know, around here, the side of his face, if I just slide that up a bit, you see, and also within the hedge behind him and stuff like that, it kind of lifts it and things. The clarity, I will just bump the clarity up, which kind of brings out all the details, which I think is quite cool for physique shoots and stuff, but you have to be very kind of careful with it. It gives it a weird look if you whack it up too high. So I just put it at about, say, 25, I think. Then the vibrance, and then the green is kind of popping. Now I could selectively choose all the greens or the yellows within the image and stuff and bring those down, but just to show you here, this will bring the vibrance of the overall image down and give it a bit more of a muted feel. I'll bring that down, and then again the saturations, you can see that'll just take it all the way down to black and white. So say somewhere like this. Another thing I'll do then is look for distracting things within the shot that I think, hang on, this is kind of drawing the eye away from the subject. This one doesn't have too many little distracting things, but if I did want to remove something, I will choose the spot removal tool. And then here, for example, I want to remove these leaves here that are sticking out and stuff. You can change the size here of the brush and the feathering of the brush as well. Say if you were to, I'll bring it up here so you can kind of see what it's doing. You can see you have an inner and outer ring, which is basically your feathering size and stuff. So if I bring that down to here, you will see it has no inner ring. I bring it here, it's slightly smaller. Then if I were to slide it all the way here, you can see that's got very soft feathering and stuff. And then I think I'll resize the brush by pressing the bracket keys on your keyboard, which is next to the letter P. So hit a bracket, make it smaller, make it bigger. because I don't want a massive brush because I'm doing a bit more precise work. So I'll just literally just paint over that. Photoshop will analyze what's nearby and then duplicate or patch something really, or heal, whatever you want to call it, from another part of the image. Sometimes it chooses random stuff. Now I'll get rid of this overlay thing so you can see it actually does a fairly decent job. I don't know how it does it and why it does it like this, because it just said it's looked at the sword, which is obviously not green, and it's kind of patched it there. But the good thing is, if you think it's chosen because it randomly analyzes the image, if you think, oh man, that's copied from the wrong area, if you hover over this, the selection that he's making, you can click and drag to another area, and I think you're probably better off just choosing a bit here somewhere from the hedge, and then doop, updated, and you would never know that it's taken it from there. And I will again, I don't know, see this bit by here, gone, that little flower, gone, these ones by here, and just patch it up. Now the spot healing tool is also good for obviously healing spots and blemishes and things like that. So you know, if in this case I think with the model there's nothing really I wanted to worry about to fix and stuff. So again, I don't know, say for instance you want to get rid of some of these scars. Now I'm going to leave these in, but just for the sake of illustration, you just paint over that. Again, give it a second and it's magically disappeared. You see, like so. Sometimes you have to do it a couple of times. But Photoshop tends to do a really good job of it. So Control Z, Control Z, oops, Control Alt Z. Come back. There we go. Right, okay, so that's come back. Right, I will then, down here you can scale the size of the image back to fit full size. Now, next thing I want to do is the kind of the look, I think, of the overall image, the colors and what have you. So, first of all, I will go to the tones. I want sort of like a muted look on this. So, I have this here, which is basically you just click on this corner. Now that's too contrasty, and I'll lift it up roughly here. You can see how all the blacks are muted out, and I will take it a bit further just so you can see exactly what it's doing. Now that's obviously a bit too much for what I want. I don't want to lose too much detail in the shadows by bringing in too much contrast, like looking at the side of his face and stuff. So you know, I might just there maybe. Sometimes I'll click here just to have a sort of a bit more effect that's having. By and large, I'm kind of happy with it, so I'm not going to fiddle too much. Again, here you've got the sharpening if you wanted to sharpen the image, but this image is too far sharp. But again, if you wanted to sharpen it, you can bring the sharpness up. Now, just be careful with the sharpening, because it kind of increases the noise. If you take it up here, look at this weirdness here going on, you see. So I would never go that far. So as this shot's pretty sharp, I will leave it as is. Okay, go back down here. Now here you have the hue, saturation and luminance sliders, which are brilliant. Now say for instance I thought the green here, this hedge, is a bit too distracting from him, and I want to just bring down the green. Now you might actually think that a hedge is mostly green, but it's actually a lot of yellow. So you see here, it's also picking up the yellow everywhere in the image. So you can look at the brick in the background and stuff, you know, that's coming down. So I'll just bring that down, and then let's try a bit of the green. Ooh, there is a lot of green. Ooh, that's too much. So I'll bring the greens down a little bit here. And again, you can do the same sort of thing with the luminance. You see? Again, I just find it better if you just whack the sliders all the way across just to see what they do. So I'll just darken that. I think darkening is a good idea because your eye tends to be drawn away from the subject. Let's see what the orange slider does. Your eye tends to be drawn away by bright elements in an image. Your eyes go to the brighter things. So anyway, okay, like so. Now, split toning is really cool for creating a bit of a look on an image. Now, I tend to keep the saturation quite low here. So I'll just pop these on usually about equal. And then the highlights, slide these, you see, that gives it a bit of a retro vintage kind of look. You can take the highlights towards a bit more blue. But I think as this is kind of like, I don't know, I think I'll kind of want a warmer feel on this, so I'll keep it around this neck of the woods a second, and then I will bring this over here. See what this looks like. Maybe like so. And now this is quite handy, this balance, because it kind of gives you, you can slide between the two, just soften off a bit more, one way or the other. So say for instance my highlights are a bit on the blue side, and I'll put that down here just so you can see. Then slide on the slider across brings it one way or the other, you see. So I'll put that back to there. Bring that down again. What was I going for? Bit of a warmer look. That looks a little bit too washed out to me. No difference in the colours, because they're obviously both the highlights and the shadows are the same sort of shade. This is getting a little bit better. More what I'm after. Say. Again, it's just a fiddle, basically. You could just try all sorts of different looks for what you want until you're happy. There's no, you know, who's the boss, unless there's a client who is the boss. Here we have the corrections for the chromatic abrasion and all that sort of stuff. Actually, is this it? Yes. So you can select remove chromatic abrasion. You won't really see it in a shot this far, but basically look for the areas where a lot of light and contrast. Sometimes you'll have like a purple edge here. I can see a little bit of purple going on here, I think, and here and here. So you can use these sliders and hopefully, actually I can see a lot of purple here. That should remove it. Yes, yes. It's a bit tricky to see sometimes. In some shots it's just more obvious than others. So I'm taking out that purple. It will, if there's anything else purple in this shot, it will affect that as well. But as it happens, there isn't. So might look around here. Yeah, everything looks okay. I'll resize that shot there. Here you can add, under the effects, you can add grain. I don't want to add any grain, and dehazing the shot kind of makes it all fuzzy and ghosty and stuff, and that's just too much contrast. I barely ever touch the dehazing button, slider, and the same goes with the grain. I will sometimes add vignetting, depending on the shot. You can see a vignette, old school. No, this is old school. This is proper 80s. This is a bit of a weird look. Too dark, obviously. I'm just showing you for the sake of illustration. Now here you've got a roundness slider, so you can change the shape of the vignette. I tend to do that just to show that it's not obviously a vignette. Now again, here you can choose the midpoint and the feathering, make it nice and soft. And this one I don't tend to touch because I don't think it does too much. So anyway, and then you can bring the vignetting down a bit. I'll do that like so. But in this case, I'm not actually going to do any vignetting. I'm going to leave it like this, nice and clean all the way around. So that's that. Again, I don't often go in the camera calibration and things just to change the colors, but you can, again, fiddle around. It's quite similar to what the split toning thing was doing. In fact, actually, I quite like that, a little bit of purple there. Look at that, eh? Ooh, look, it's picking out these colors. Green primary, what's this gonna do? Ooh, that looks a bit... This looks old school. Negative, old... picture that my mum used to have. Okay, this is quite cool actually. Well, look at that. I'm having a quick play and I quite like the result. Yes. No. Yes, no. Like I said, this isn't a tutorial. This is just me messing around in Photoshop, editing a little bit. Now here I have tons of presets from other photo shoots, because basically every time you create a file like this, open a file, a raw file in Camera Raw, it creates a file with it so that you can kind of save. Every time you open it up, you can go back in. It's almost like a PSD and stuff, and then fiddle with the settings and what have you. But say for instance you have 10 photos from this particular location, and you're like, oh, I want to go back and apply a preset to another shot because I like the look of this. Then you can basically down here click on this button and then type in, I don't know, warrior sword shot, like so. Hit OK, and it'll basically add it to your list of presets. You see, so it should be down here somewhere. Warrior sword shot down there. Now see, if I were to then click on, say, Robin Hood from another shoot, it changes the look. These are all my different presets. Now you're thinking, oh no, I've ruined all my work, I've changed it all completely. Then you can just go back and click on warrior sword shot and it puts it back how I had it. So happy days on that one. Snapshots, I don't bother with that. Now over here you have the selective brushes and things. So you can apply a graduated filter across a shot, and now this is sort of affects, I kind of do this for my exposure. So say for instance I had a very bright sky in the background, I want to bring the sky down a little. If you look at the exposure slider, I will put this back to that. So this is literally just kind of affecting the exposure. I'll bring that to there so you can see what I'm doing. Click and drag, you see, and this obviously is the more feathering that it's doing. You can then click midway and then you can slide that down, up and down, which is great for kind of giving like an ND filter kind of graduated look thing that you might see in landscape. You can do multiple of them and you can change the direction just for sliding it around. It's quite a cool feature if you've got certain areas of the shot you want to either brighten or darken. I kind of tend to do it with that, and it works well for skies and stuff. Oops, let go. Go away. And then, like I say, it's a bit of a fiddle sometimes because the arrows, the positioning and so on change with the again with what you're doing. So I'm gonna get rid of that because I don't actually want it, but I just thought I'd show you what you could do. Radial filter, again similar, but the shape of it, say for instance you wanted him to be nicely lit like so, and you want the rest of the shot to be quite dark. You can position that, say, there. Again, you can make that like so. These are really cool, fun little things. And then I think like this, you can just change the position of that. Actually, I might just bring that bit down there, change the shape less stretched, and place that, say, there. And then basically the exposure thing is obviously affecting everything on the outside of this oval. You see, it's the same, and everything else goes dark. Now you can change the color. Obviously, the white balance around him, that just looks weird. Like, why would you do that? But you might want to. Who knows? I don't know what you're doing. And again, you've got the feathering options down here, all the different sliders. Just have a play, basically, and see what it does. There may be a certain part of the shot you might want to think, oh, I want to sharpen that bit more than I want to sharpen him. Use the sharpen slider, and so on. So again, I'm just going to get rid of that because I don't want it. That's so. Now, one other thing that I really like is the adjustment brush. Now, this was a revelation when I found out that I could do this. Now I could selectively, you can kind of dodge and burn kind of thing with this. Let's say for example here, I think this is too bright. There's a highlight here that I want to bring down, and the area here on his torso is too bright. And maybe I want to darken a little bit of his leg as well, because you see with the previous sliders it kind of affects a large area. With this brush you can pick and choose what you want to highlight and change and so on. So now I know this is too much, so I'll take that to say there for now. Let me zoom in on his shoulder here, shall we? Okay, the adjustment brush, and then I'll just increase my brush, press tab. I'll choose a sort of fairly soft feathering as well, just so that it's not too bright, too harsh. And then just paint over this area here, just to bring it down a bit, and then the torso there, just see, so it helps blend in a little bit more around there. And again, once that's applied, you can see these little arrows, these little pointers. You can turn these off. You see, the reason why they're there and they're quite handy is because you can also create new ones. So you think, right, that adjustment I'm happy with. Then I want to create a separate adjustment, say for his face, by here. Oops, add. That was a new one. Sorry. Right. Okay. It's now should have created two separate ones. See? So then I can click on it. It shows me the area that I'm affected by hovering over it. And say if I wanted to adjust just the arms and the torso area, now his face, I then select it by waiting, clicking on it, and now it'll just affect this area here, and it won't touch his face. And if I wanted to do that on his face, then I click that, and I can choose all this sort of shizzle. So I don't want to do that, and I want to bring this one back up, and exposure back to there, to about 50 odd. And then because you're going to have all these little pointers sticking all over the place, if you just want to turn them off, it's a good way of doing that. So fit. Okay, so I've brought that down a little bit. Again, I might just do a little bit more, create a new one just there, bring that down like just a tad. Hit the legs down a bit, just like so. Now again, I could go around the background if I wanted to. I might create a new one and just lower some of the highlights around here. You just quick brush over there, a bit here, and like so. That's kind of it, I think, for this one. You can obviously then select the erase button by turn the overlay on, hit the erase button. And then it should just change again, and then you could just paint over his face again and change it and erase the adjustments that you've made. But there we go. I will stick with that, and then I will go open image, give it a second. Okay. Down here I have adjustment layers. I will say if I wanted to apply a photo filter and I want to warm it up a bit, I might use this. This is too much. I don't like this too much. And you have a whole load of different ones. You might want to add a bit more of a blue tone to the image. But again, I don't want to do it in this instance, but I might just play with a photo filter. It's a quick and easy way. There's loads of different ways of changing the colors and stuff, but I'm just showing you quickly how to do some basic kind of adjustments. It's great to use adjustment layers rather than doing it up here in image and adjustments, because even though these are also in the bottom corner there in the adjustment layers, if you use these will apply it directly to the image, and it's there for good essentially. Whereas if you use these down here, it creates a separate layer, an adjustment layer, and it's above your image looking down essentially, and you can make all the adjustments here and it won't actually touch the original image, and then you can go ahead and save it, and you can always go back to it if you save it in the right format, etc, etc. And what was the other thing I was gonna do? Oh, I know what. Right here I have some flames, some embers and things like that I wanted to add to the image. I won't actually do it in the final shot, but I will just show you. These are stock items that I bought off Shutterstock. I will just click and drag it to my layer like so. Now you're thinking, hang on, where's he gone? I can't see anything. all the black elements here in the image, if you go in your layer blend mode, change it to screen, it gets rid of all things black. And then also color dodge does a similar sort of thing, you see, but generally screen kind of works. Now you can then slide that around and reposition it how you want, if you want these embers and things. Again, if you wanted to add some of this here, this orange over on this side, you could just duplicate that layer by pressing Control J, Control T, and then you can just grab the corners and then flip it around, reposition it over here, hit enter to lay it down. Now if I were to zoom in, come on, if I were to zoom in, you can see these little bits and bobs are actually quite stationary kind of thing, and you see all the yellow bits, and I might want to add a bit of blur to it. So select the layer you want to affect, go to filter, go to blur, go to motion blur. Now it's too much and it's flying straight up, so I will just put a bit of a blur on it, and I'll just change this angle here to make it look like there's some movement in these embers, as would be kind of logical. Let's try that. And I will do the same thing to this layer. Apply it again. These little bits by here should change a little bit. Come on, Photoshop. Now I'll resize it. Again, I think these are too bright. So a simple way is I could just bring down the opacity or the fill and just bring it down a little, so the entirety of that image will change its opacity kind of stuff, so it'll be a bit more see-through. Now if I only wanted to affect this area here, then I can apply a layer mask, and then with the layer mask selected, get a brush. That's too big, too big, too big. Let's get it down, please. Then with black selected, I've changed the flow to 10, so that means it's not coming out 100% full whack and it's just going to paint over it really quick. I can change the hardness to 0% so it's got a softer edge, and then I could just paint over it, and I'm keeping my finger on it, you see, and I can paint it out completely if I wanted to. And then if you look on the layer mask, you see the little black bit there? That's this over here in the image, so you can see the areas affected. And you're thinking, oh no, I've painted away too much. Then just press X on your keyboard, it'll flip your color selection over here. See, it's defaulted to black. Press X, doosh, it flips it around. See, handy little trick. And then you can paint on the layer. Like I said, the layer mask is still selected. Go to the area you want to paint, and then you can paint the yellow bits back in. Isn't that brilliant? Simple little things like that. You can just again press X. Black is to remove bits of the image, and then white is to paint it all back. But it's done via the layer mask, not on that actual image itself, because if you do that on there, you will be painting white back onto this, or black back onto the actual layer. So do it on the layer mask, much better. So this bit of orange here, too much orange, I don't like it. So that's how I would do that. And again, you know, I've got another one. You could do the same sort of thing to that, if you know, whatever. It's the same thing. But yeah, I don't want to do that on this shot because I just want it like this, nice, straightforward portrait. So there we go. I hope you enjoyed that video. Like I said, it wasn't a tutorial per se, but just kind of gives you an idea of how I've just spotted something. How I would go about editing an image. Look, I have a spot healing brush tool here as well in my palette. Now I could also use the clone tool to do this, but meh, I'll just paint over that bit there, and then Photoshop is going to analyze it and then do a nice little jobby of painting these things in back for me. So there we go. That's the end of this video. And if you like this video, you know the usual. Please like, comment, share and subscribe. Happy days.